And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Hey folks, I'm Tom Vasel. Today we're taking a look at 1754 Conquest, the French and Indian War. Now this is the third in a series of games from Academy Games that are based on historical time periods, but they use kind of the same system. The first was 1812, the second was 1775, and now we have 1754. So we have the War of 1812, we have the American War for Independence, and now we have the French and Indian War, as it was called. This is a game that is a two-player game or a four-player game where each player will take part of a team. And so it's the French and the French colonials against the British and the British colonials, with the Native Americans kind of caught up in the middle. Very light war game. Let's take a look at how it plays. So here's the board, and you can see that it's a sliver here of North America with the Atlantic Ocean and the Gulf of St. Lawrence up there. On the board itself, you're going to be placing cubes. And one of the things that I've always liked about these games is you know exactly what to place there because it tells you red and white cube, red and white cube, red and white cube, etc. The red cubes are the British Army. The purple cubes are the French Army. Then the white cubes are the British colonials. And the yellow cubes are the French Canadians. The green cubes are Native Americans who might be on either side, although you'll see here at the beginning of the game, they're all pretty much with the Canadians. Each player is going to be able to place out some more cubes, 4 of each color, at the beginning of the game. A round marker is placed here, and then a cube that matches each player is thrown into a bag. And the round begins. We pull a cube out, and it's that player's turn. It's the French regular's turn, so we place it here. And then, as we pull them out, there's 5 cubes in the bag, 1 for each army, and 1 for Native Americans. We'll talk about Native Americans first. When they're pulled, the symbol that is on the track where they are pulled. So you can see here, let's say I pulled the X. Well, then I can put a Native American. I'll put a Native American on the 2 spots on the board that have that symbol. So one of them is here. You can see the X there, so I'll add a Native American there. And then I find the other one, which is somewhere here on the board. There's the other one here. And he joins the British there. So that's kind of an interesting way to have them pop up. And they're going to be moving around and fighting the different troops on the board. Now, on a player's turn, they'll get reinforcements. The British and the French get their reinforcements in their ports that they have around the board, while the colonials get them at mustering points that they have, and however big the mustering point is how many troops they get there. Also, in battles, the regulars will never run away, but the British and French Canadians will run away sometimes, so they're put here with fled units, and they will come back to that player at the beginning of their turn. So on your turn, you're going to be playing a card, a movement card, and each player has movement cards. This lets me move 2 armies, 2 spaces each. 2 armies, 3 spaces each. 3 armies, 2 spaces each. And so you'll see this 1 army, 4 space. And sometimes I can also move, the British and the French regulars can move from port to port through the oceans. But when I move them, I can move any army I want. The 2 players are going to be allied together, but I can only move the army if one of mine's in it. So if I'm the British regulars, I can move this group here because there's a red cube with it. But I can't move this group down here because it's only white cubes. If you move into an enemy area, you will have a battle. When you have a battle, so let's say, for example, that these 4 attack these 3 here. Well, normally the Native Americans would fight one of the sides, but if they're on both sides, they will cancel each other out. So they're gone. They're not involved in this. So here we have 2 colonials and 1 British regular, so I get a die for each of those. And the most dice there is 3 white dice, 2 red dice, 3 yellow dice, 2 green dice. And then the French will have a yellow and a purple. The defenders will roll first, so they roll here. And the yellow colonial flees from battle, and the purple colonial does a hit. So then the attackers have to decide who they're going to get rid of. So they say, all right, we're going to probably get rid of one of these white ones. That gives us still 2 dice to roll. So then they roll those 2 dice. They get 1 hit. This person's out, and they've won the battle. Now, some of these spots have a fort in them. When that happens, the defender also will roll the fort die, which has a symbol on it 50% of the time, and this will block one of the attacker's hits if you roll that fort symbol. And that's pretty much it. Players are going to be moving around and attacking. Now, what's the whole point of the game? At the beginning of the game, there are different spots on the board that have victory symbols on them. The British have all the victory symbols in the red, the French have all the victory symbols in the purple, and the green, which is where you would dispute them, they each have some more. You'll have them placed on here, and you're trying to have more than your opponent. If the French come down here and conquer something, they'll put one of their tokens here. If the British will take it back, you just take the token off because this is obviously a British one. Now, the game is going to take place over a certain number of rounds where each player is going to go. As players are playing their cards, each player has one card that has the word truce on it. If both players on one side, or both of the factions on one side, play their truce card, or everyone plays their truce card, then the game will end. And whoever has the most victory spots on the board, and you don't need to count the ones in your own, you just need to count the symbols, whoever has more of those is the winner. There's also a small expansion called Native Alliance, and these are cards where players can draw on at the beginning of the game, and it might give you extra Native Americans or a special ability that they have as the game progresses. And that's pretty much how you play. There's other cards that players will have on their turn that are event cards that you can play besides just the movement. So like, for example, here, this lets me move a yellow muster marker to another town that you control, so you can move where your reinforcements come in. Here I can flip a muster marker. It gives, instead of giving 2 for the rest of the game, it will give 3. Here, move all the native units located in the fled units area, +1, into any green area. So you basically are bringing back the reinforcements that have fled from the Native Americans. So you have different cards that you can play. You can play an event card, you can play a movement card. At the end of your turn, you'll draw back up. And we'll keep going till either the game is going to definitely end at the 8th round because people will be forced to play their truce cards, or if one side or all sides play them, the game could end earlier. Now, I really like the first 2 games in this series, so this one is not going to be any different. There's a lot of things I like about this game. Sure, I could use little miniatures probably over the cubes, but the cubes do make it easy to move things around, and it gives you kind of this nice big picture. One of the things that Academy Games has always done is it adds a very strong historical flavor to the game, and this certainly happens here. The rule book has lots of information. You want to learn about the French and Indian War. I love that. I feel like the 2 sides are pretty asymmetrical, but at the same time they feel balanced, and so that's kind of a neat thing. One of the things that I like about this game is most of the time in a 2-player light war game, or any war game really for that matter, if you say, well, it's a 4-player game and each side controls one faction or whatever, it's just basically, oh, we're playing a 2-player game, but now you're only playing half of it. This one actually feels like a 4-player game, and when you play the 2-player version, you're playing 2 players' parts. And so I think it actually works better as 4 players because you are working together with your partner, and sometimes you might argue a little bit about which cubes are coming out. Like, oh, do you want to kill the colonial? But the colonial could run away, and we might see him to fight another day. But the British regulars hit more often on their die because the British and the French regulars will hit 50% of the time. The other 50% of the time, it's a blank side, which lets you retreat if you roll it. You can pull a unit out of battle. So that could be convenient, but they never flee. Why would you want to flee? Well, sometimes you like when they flee because they can show up somewhere else on the board and help you out there. And so this game is a game of battle, very light battle, right? You're rolling dice to see what happens, but also area control. Now, of the 3 games in this series, this is probably my second favorite. I like all 3 of them, but 1812 was good. This feels like an updated version of 1812. This is very similar to 1812 in many ways. The biggest difference here are the forts. The forts certainly make a difference. They make a difference where you control. They're very powerful. It's hard to take a fort from someone. Then stopping one of your hits every turn can be a real big pain. You need a big army to take out a fort. But I don't like it quite as much as 1775 because I thought the area control and different ways to win in that one were fascinating. And also, I do like the American War for Independence a lot. But this one is still a solid game in that series. It's educational, but also extremely fun. Highly recommend this series of games. I don't know that you need to own all of them unless you're looking for that level of historical, I want to play this battle, this battle, this battle, because there is some overlap with the other ones, but it's not just a reskin. It's not just, it's the same game with a different date. No, the map is different, the units are different, they added forts, they added the Native American little mini expansion with the cards. There's a thing at the beginning of the game where you can even pick where the forts start. So I feel like this one is its own beast, and yet it still fits that very nice veneer of having a very easy, light war game, one that people can jump into, but more depth than you might think. Very, very highly recommend it. 1754 Conquest. Dice Tower Judgment, excellent.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.
Shut the door!